What's cooking, folks? Vermillion Phoenix here, and today we are jumping into some Orcs Must Die Unchained. We are going to be heading into the Sludge Shelves, the 14th scenario in the Old Friends, or the original campaign for the game. This clear is a little shaky, but it gives you enough information that you can kind of improve it if you are going through and trying to clear this. And I'm going to talk about some of the improvements that are possible here as I go through. Mainly because, well, the clear I think is solid enough to warrant like revisiting. The trap placement can be improved. And it will also help with a lot of the things that happen throughout the course of this level. And we'll talk about the loadout too, just because this loadout does some things that I've tried not to do in earlier levels, but people that have played some older Orcs games may understand like kind of why I'm doing it. But the first thing is that you're going to be relying on the window of butterflies quite a bit here. You'll also see that we are not using the blunderbuss, we're using the Bladestaff instead. That is going to make sure that we have to rely on traps to kill heavy units, particularly the ogres that are coming through here. And that's one of the reasons why you see me placing auto ballista really early. The Bladestaff is going to give you superior damage against large groups of orcs. You'll be able to deal a lot of damage, knock their shields away, and basically clear the crowds out rather quickly. As long as you can keep them grouped up. You'll also be able to slow them down a bit, just due to the fact that you'll be aggroing a few orcs in the front, which will prevent their forward advance a bit. And also, just the amount of enemies that'll be running through you will allow you to rack up damage, similar to what you could get from the blunderbuss, but just not against a single target. Because you can't do good damage against single targets, you'll want to make sure that you're liberally tossing around ceiling ballista in places where you're going to see a lot of enemy traffic. You'll see here, like, I'm not placing a lot of wall traps, mainly because they won't have a ton of places to actually fire off. Now, there's a few places where wall traps would actually work really well, and I'm going to try to point those out now. So, you'll want to trap up these walls that are leading towards the stairs. They don't give you the most payoff. The last wall right before the rift is the one that you'll probably pay the most attention to and have the best trap setup that you'll actually be able to focus on. And since that's where you'll be doing a lot of your fighting later, you'll be able to support it with things like your ice amulet as well. So any traps placed down here are really just to thin the herd. They're not really going to do the bulk of your defense, which is fine. But making sure that you strengthen the last position is probably going to be the most important thing for you to do. Yeah, nah, this guy is pretty much toast here. He's going to get arrowed again. Now, one thing that you could probably do here is place a couple of, rather than these barricades, just place a line of brimstone, which will wind up costing you about the same amount, just across the entire set of the area here. What that'll do is it'll make sure that you're burning everything and give you a better chance at dealing damage to the sappers when they run up to you, rather than just giving them targets to blow up, which is kind of the opposite of anything good. But I still like the placing of the ballista up top. They help to thin the herd, which is super important, and you know, they can kind of just stay there the entire time. You don't have to worry about trying to sell those or anything else, mainly because you do kind of need to thin things and deal with the heavier enemies as they're coming through, and ballista are one of your best way of doing that. On top of that, besides just the ballista, you can, instead of the barricades here, you also could just choose to place arrow walls instead, while you'll have to kind of back off from the heavier enemies. You wouldn't have lost that 800 coin for the barricade there, and it would have done a bit more damage while you waited, or while you froze those enemies. So, you know, there's just a lot of ineffective coin that's eventually going to go to waste in that little setup there, but it works for just distracting things. That corner that I just turned is the one that you're really going to want to defend at later on, and as soon as wave 4 starts, you have to run up here. There's no option to not do so because of the heaviness of the enemies that get thrown out quickly. You can see how many orcs just came out. You don't have enough traps to really deal with them in a fast or efficient manner, just because this is just the starting coin that we had when we came into the level. So you just heard that screech, meaning that we have more sappers coming in. They're pretty much just going to have free reign to blow up the barricades that we left. There it goes. Exactly. So what we want to do instead is that area that I just turned at the top of those stairs is where you want to try to place your final bottleneck. And what will happen is as you clear the top area and maybe back down so that the ceiling ballista can kind of finish enemies off for you, you'll want to come over here and make sure that you're picking off any sappers before they actually get to your barricades. Consequently, because I cleared this with pretty much every barricade I placed that wasn't right here just being blown up, the extra coin that you lose from those barricades isn't really that big a deal. However, you'll want to make sure that you get those ballista put up there, because those ballista, along with the ones that we have placed at the top of the stairs to the right of me here, are basically going to be what take out your heavy units as they're kind of going through here. You'll see they just start taking chunks of damage, and the most that I can do with this weapon setup is essentially just hold them in place for the traps to do their thing. You could also, once you get the trap set up, of course, just hit your trap trinket and it will do wonders for you. So remember that as well. There we go. So that window of butterflies will basically allow enemies to kind of toggle back and forth in their pathing and get shot to death by the ceiling ballista. It'll make sure that we are doing a lot less work, which is great. I think that double shot of ice there was unintentional, but kind of worked out just because I didn't have to freeze too much else here. You want to be careful with the gnolls, mainly not for the damage that they deal, but because they slow you down. And if they happen to hit you when you are trying to transition to a new area, it might cause some issues for you. These are fire fiends coming up here, and if you didn't realize already, if you had any fire traps, they will be completely useless against these guys. One of the things that I'd probably like to see at some point is the shields that show the damage type immunity are probably recolored from red to like something else like yellow, so you can see that these guys aren't taking damage instead of just big red splotches popping up whenever they get hit with fire damage. Because it's kind of hard to read there, but otherwise not too terrible. So yeah, there's really not a super huge amount. We're going to start blocking off this area a bit. We definitely did not need the window of butterflies there. We should have not placed that, and that would have allowed me to put up my last barricade there a little bit sooner. These guys are really just a pain in the butt if they don't get hit with the crossbows or ceiling ballista soon enough. Okay, so there we go. One guy left. We got the ballista on standby, so we don't even have to worry about them. I'm going to start trying to place more ballista to flesh this out. The stutters there were not like an issue with my computer or anything. Those actually came from Stadia. So, you know, sorry about that. I couldn't get like a perfect frame video of this, but you know, Stadia does have its issues with just consistency in some cases. Colors in some games too, but overall not too bad. Like I would definitely say that Orcs is probably one of the best looking games overall on Stadia. It doesn't seem to tax things too much until you do Endless, and then there's just like way too much stuff on the screen. Even in a couple of the war scenarios, you get so many enemies that there's some significant slowdown. I hope when they actually bring that to other platforms that is sort of resolved in many cases. I'm sure they'll have to test for a lot of setups. But, you know, we'll have to wait until that actually happens. Either way, this pretty much showcases how well this setup works once you get it running. The slowing down of the heavy enemies and then just having all of the ballista right there is great. There's a couple places where I could place a few more arrow walls, which would help with a lot of things, which I think I eventually do, but not quite there yet. So that's pretty much everything that I think I'm going to need in that little nook for dealing with those enemies. And you could place, after this, just a few more ballista in the back so that they're able to shoot down the stairs. That would be like the best setup. But at this point, we're almost done, and any gold or coin that we get to place things is just icing on the cake. You can see that the orcs, or ogres, I'm sorry, are turning around here and really not doing too much. We also could have, if we were anywhere near it, just not placed or sold that misplaced window of butterflies above the barricade there, and we would have been fine. To make sure that you can't just pick off all of the sappers here, they kind of started rolling with the fire elementals, so they'll get up to where your traps are going to deal damage to them, and then they'll kind of just blow up everything. But because there's not a huge amount of space here, I'm kind of just holding coin, and we get to just, you know, replace everything. An alternative is instead of having the traps fire slightly faster or cool down slightly faster with the trap trinket, you can have it so that it repairs barricades, so that when they start taking damage, you kind of just pop it and they'll get their health back. It's just one thing that you can do to change the loadout a bit that might actually help you out a bit more with something like this. That was me just trying to line things up properly. And down here, if you wanted to place some arrow walls, you could have done this earlier, just at that back wall where enemies will be going up the stairs. That will also help. I was contemplating letting that guy kind of run into the rift, but I decided I should just kill him for his coin, just in case it actually turned out to be something that I needed. And you can see that enemies aren't really getting too far now. They're kind of just coming out and then taking enough damage so that they just die. Mostly the heavier enemies are only getting through, and then they just need like 1 or 2 hits from the ballista to bite the dust, which is great. We're going to place a few more traps out here just to make sure the enemies are kind of slowed down, and from there we're pretty much a-okay. Like, you don't have anything to worry about. This is the last wave. You have to be careful here because the time here is actually still pretty tight. I think by the time I finish this wave, it may have been just a bit more than 30 seconds left. But you can see where all the enemies are. Oh no, it may have been a little bit faster. But yeah, you don't have a ton of time to waste, even though there's no go breaks. And that will mostly depend on how fast and where you finish off the last enemies in the wave. But yeah, for the most part, I would say the least useful trap in this entire setup is probably the Arcane Brimstone. It allows you to use it and have a floor trap that works against the fire elementals. 46 seconds, under 50. Kind of get antsy whenever that happens. But yeah, that is the sludge shelves. Let me know what you guys think, and if you have any questions about it. If you had an easier time with this, feel free to let me know what you change. And other than that, I know I had finished this before, and I think I did something similar. I might have even used the decoy, but I think I had done that while playing with somebody else, so I didn't want to trust the score and redid it like this. But yeah, other than that, thanks for watching as always. I sincerely hope you guys enjoyed the video. Feel free to follow me on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/VermillionPhoenix. Link should be in the description as well. You can follow the Facebook page as well if you have one, and subscribe to the YouTube. There's going to be more Orcs 3 stuff coming. Eventually I'm going to get to the DLC as well, and you know, we'll be moving on to some other games after I play through most of what's left here, unless anybody has anything specific that they want to see, and I decide to do that as well. Either way, thanks again as always, sincerely appreciated, and until next time, have a good one, folks. Peace.